When we reflect upon the story of the Roman Empire, we are not simply revisiting dusty pages of history. We are tracing the arc of human ambition, power, and fragility. Imagine a small settlement by the Tiber River, rising to command lands stretching from the misty shores of Britain to the deserts of Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the heart of the Middle East. Rome's journey was not only a conquest of territory, but a conquest of imagination, law, and culture. At its height, Rome was the very definition of greatness. Roads connected distant provinces, armies carried not just swords but order, and grand forums echoed with the voices of leaders debating the destiny of millions. The empire shone with innovation, art, and architecture, crafting monuments that still stand as witnesses of its glory. Yet, beneath the grandeur, the very foundations of Rome were eroding. Greed crept into leadership, divisions split its unity, and the weight of governing such vast lands proved too heavy even for its mighty shoulders. The collapse of Rome was not sudden. It was a slow unraveling of discipline, purpose, and stability. But even in its fall, Rome gave the world more than it lost. From its ashes rose principles of law, governance, and culture that echo in modern society. The empire may have crumbled, but its spirit continues to whisper lessons of ambition without restraint, of power without balance, and of legacies that endure long after kingdoms fall. The vision and expansion of Rome is one of the most extraordinary stories in human history. To understand its rise, we must first imagine Rome not as a mighty empire, but as a humble beginning, a small settlement along the Tiber River, surrounded by rival tribes and constantly struggling for survival. Rome was not born powerful. It became powerful through a combination of resilience, ambition, and a relentless will to expand. From its earliest days, the Romans possessed a unique quality. They were never content with what they had. They believed deeply in their destiny, that they were meant for something greater, something eternal. This sense of purpose became the heartbeat of their civilization. Rome's growth was not accidental. It was built on discipline, both military and social. The Roman army was more than just soldiers. It was a machine of precision, training, and loyalty. Every Roman soldier was a farmer turned fighter, a citizen who carried not only a sword but also the identity of Rome itself. Their legions were feared across the Mediterranean world, because they fought not for personal glory but for the survival and honor of their city. This military discipline allowed Rome to defeat enemies much larger than itself, slowly but surely extending its borders outward, first across Italy, then across the seas. But the expansion of Rome was not only about battles won. It was about the systems it created. Conquered peoples were not always destroyed or enslaved. Many were given a path to citizenship, a chance to become Romang themselves. This was a revolutionary idea. It meant that Rome was not just an empire of conquest, but an empire of integration. Roads were built to connect distant provinces, laws were established to maintain order, and Latin spread as a common language, binding together people of different cultures under one identity. In this way, Rome expanded not only its territory but also its influence, creating unity out of diversity. The vision that guided Rome was ambitious yet practical. Its leaders understood that strength came not just from armies but from administration. They built aqueducts to bring water into cities, ensuring the growth of urban centers. They developed legal systems that could apply across vast regions, bringing a sense of fairness and predictability even to those who lived far from the capital. In many ways, Rome was laying the foundations of what we now recognize as civilization: infrastructure, law, citizenship, and governance. The Roman vision also included a hunger for glory. Every conquest was celebrated, every new land a symbol of their destiny. To the Romans, expansion was not greed. It was a duty, a fulfillment of their belief that they were chosen to rule and bring order to the world. This mindset drove them ever forward, until their empire stretched from the misty forests of northern Europe to the sun-scorched deserts of Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the heart of the Middle East. a city that once struggled to survive among rival tribes had, through vision and expansion, become the undisputed master of the known world. The Golden Age of Rome was a time when the empire reached heights that seemed almost unimaginable for a civilization that had once been a small city-state. At its peak, Rome was not simply powerful. It was radiant. Its achievements were not confined to the battlefield, but stretched across politics, culture, architecture, and philosophy. The Roman Empire became a living symbol of human creativity and ambition, where daily life reflected a balance between order and grandeur. This period gave Rome a brilliance that the world still remembers with awe. At the heart of this golden era was stability. Strong emperors, such as Augustus, brought peace to lands that had long known only war. The Pax Romana, or Roman peace, lasted for over 2 centuries, creating an environment where trade flourished, ideas spread, and cities thrived. Merchants could travel from the far reaches of Britain to the deserts of Egypt under the protection of Roman law and military presence. This stability transformed the empire into an interconnected web of cultures and commerce, making Rome not just a ruling power but the beating heart of the ancient world. During this time, Rome's architectural achievements were nothing short of breathtaking. The Colosseum stood as a marvel of engineering, an arena capable of holding tens of thousands, where gladiators and spectacles entertained crowds. Aqueducts carried fresh water across mountains and valleys, feeding bustling cities with life. Temples and forums reflected not only religious devotion but also civic pride, reminding citizens and visitors alike that Rome was a city built to inspire awe. These structures were not merely buildings. They were statements of power, vision, and permanence. Many of them still stand today, silent testaments to the empire's brilliance. Culturally, Rome became a hub where different traditions merged. The empire absorbed the art and philosophy of Greece, the sciences of Egypt, and the customs of countless other civilizations. Yet Rome did not simply copy, it transformed these influences into something uniquely its own. Roman literature flourished with poets like Virgil and Ovid, who celebrated both the empire and the human condition. Roman law developed into a structured system that brought consistency to justice, influencing legal traditions for centuries to come. Latin, the language of Rome, spread across Europe, planting the seeds for modern languages that billions speak today. Perhaps most remarkable was the Roman sense of citizenship and civic duty. To be Roman during the Golden Age was to be part of something larger than oneself. Roads stretched thousands of miles, allowing not only soldiers and merchants to travel, but also ideas and innovations. The empire became a place where people from vastly different regions could identify themselves under a single banner. This inclusiveness gave Rome a strength that went beyond its armies. It gave Rome resilience because even those who had once been conquered came to see themselves as part of its legacy. The Golden Age was a time when Rome appeared invincible, a shining beacon of order, progress, and culture in a world often ruled by chaos. It seemed as though Rome's greatness would last forever. Yet within this brilliance, unnoticed by many at the time, were the first shadows of decline. For while Rome dazzled the world with its achievements, the very things that made it powerful were beginning to strain under the weight of its own success. The seeds of decline in the Roman Empire were planted long before the empire visibly began to crumble. From the outside, Rome looked unshakable, but within its vast structure, small fractures were spreading. At first, they seemed insignificant, but over time they deepened into cracks that weakened the very foundation of the empire. The decline was not the result of a single disaster. It was the slow unraveling of systems, values, and unity that had once made Rome invincible. One of the greatest causes of decline was corruption. As the empire grew, wealth poured into Rome, but with wealth came greed. Leaders who once embodied discipline and service began to chase luxury and personal gain. Senators became more concerned with their fortunes than with the responsibilities of governance. Emperors, once seen as guardians of the state, became symbols of excess, indulging in spectacles and palaces, while neglecting the needs of the people. This moral decay eroded trust and created divisions between the rulers and the ruled. When leadership weakens, even the strongest empires begin to falter. Overextension also played a critical role. Rome's ambition had carried its borders farther than any empire had ever reached, but maintaining such vast territory proved impossible. The roads and legions that once symbolized strength became stretched thin. Defending distant frontiers against constant threats drained resources and manpower. Soldiers, weary of endless campaigns, became less loyal to Rome and more loyal to their individual generals, which led to civil wars and power struggles. The unity that had once defined the Roman army fractured, and without a strong military core, Rome's strength began to slip. Social unrest added to the empire's troubles. The gap between the rich and poor widened, creating bitterness and resentment. While the elite enjoyed grand feasts and lavish villas, the common people often struggled to survive. Bread and circuses, free food and entertainment were offered to keep the masses quiet, but such distractions could not solve the deeper issues of inequality and dissatisfaction. A society that had once thrived on shared duty and discipline now found itself divided by wealth, privilege, and neglect. Internal conflicts were matched by external pressures. Barbarian tribes at the borders grew stronger and bolder, sensing that Rome was no longer as invincible as it had once seemed. The empire faced invasions, raids, and constant instability at its edges. What had once been opportunities for Rome to demonstrate its military superiority became humiliating defeats. The fear of enemies outside, combined with the chaos inside, created a sense of uncertainty that weakened Rome's spirit. The seeds of decline were not sudden disasters but subtle shifts, leaders valuing power over service, citizens losing trust in institutions, an army stretched too thin, and a society divided by wealth and corruption. Rome, for centuries a model of discipline, order, and vision, was slowly losing the very qualities that had built its greatness. These cracks did not yet bring the empire crashing down, but they signaled the beginning of the end. The Roman Empire had reached such heights that many believed it could never fall. Yet history shows us that no empire, no matter how mighty, is immune to the slow poison of decay from within. The fall of the Roman Empire was not marked by a single dramatic event.